blaze in me, ignited by love that won't let go, brighter than 100 suns. His love forever burns in me. Passion is alive in me, ignited by love that won't let go, higher than the life I know. His love forever burns in me. I'm on fire, 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 I'm on fire. Come see me burn. Ignited by love that won't let go, brighter than 100 suns. His love forever burns in me. Oh, passion is alive in me, ignited by love that won't let go, higher than the life I know. His love forever burns in me. I'm on fire, 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 I'm on fire. Come see me burn. and great is the Lord, and praise his name, and praise his name, and we sing great.
Welcome to the well. I'm Abe. I'm one of the members here. Glad everybody could make it this morning. I'd just like to share a passage here in Philippians 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be made known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, make your requests be known to God. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think on these things. For what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the peace and the God of peace will be with you. About a month ago, like the invalid at the pool at the Bethesda, staring into it, in my fight against sin, Jesus came up to me and posed the question, do you want to be healed? And by his grace and mercy, I gave me the answer, and I said, yes, I do. And ever since then, he has been more tangible, more real to me than this in front of me. And he's put his word in my heart, and practice these things, and we can lay them at his feet. Does he want me? Does he want us to be perfect? Yes. Am I perfect? No. Did he live a perfect life? Did he live and fulfill the law perfectly? Did he do that for us? Yes. Did he take our sin and was pierced on the cross and suffered pain for us? Did he raise again, fulfilling the promise that on the last day he will raise us up with him? Yes. God who created everything and still today sustains it, he can sustain us. We can give it to him. So I just want to thank God for that and worship him for that. And as I want to seek after Jesus, not just what he can do for me, not just his healing power, but Jesus, I would like to invite everyone in this congregation to run after Jesus with me. When you see me falling, please pick me up, and if I see you, please reach out your hand so we can pick each other up. I'd like to pray. Thank you, God, for being the beautiful sustainer of our lives, that we can cast these burdens on you, that you promise to be with us, that you're real, you love us, that you paid the price for us. just thank you so much. In your name, amen. I'd like to invite everyone to stand with me today, and let's worship the God of peace.
Wanna be close, close to your side, so heaven is real and death is alive. I wanna hear voices of angels above, singing as one. Hallelujah. Holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am. I wanna be near, near to your heart, loving the world and hating the dark. I wanna see dry bones living again, singing as one. Hallelujah. Holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am, the great I am. The mountains shake before you, the demons run and flee at the mention of the name, King of Majesty. There is no power in hell or any who can stand before the power and the presence of the great I am. The great I am, the great I am, yeah. Hallelujah, holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am. Hallelujah. Holy, holy, God Almighty, the great I am, who is worthy, none beside thee. God Almighty, the great I am, the great I am, the great I am, the great I am.
Good morning, everyone. You all look very fine today. You sound very fine, too. So, this next song is quite a bit faster than that last one, and it goes a little something like this. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil why we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our veins. first, please. Thank you.
Oh man, it's coming together. All right. Yes, I am the Lord, and there is no other Savior. First I predicted your rescue, then I saved you and proclaimed it to the world. No foreign God has ever done this. You are witnesses that I am the only God, says the Lord. From eternity to eternity, I am God. No one can snatch anyone out of my hand. No one can undo what I have done. Dear Lord, I just thank you for how great you are, how we don't have to be anything for you, and you love us and you reach out your arms and hold us in your arms like a daddy should. I just praise you for the blessings that you've bestowed on us this morning and just your presence in this church. Continue to be with us as we worship you. Amen.
You are the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. You have no a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus.
God, we just thank you so much for today. God, we thank you so much for what a beautiful name you have. God, you are the great I am. God, you have rescued me from my sin. God, I am worthless. But God, you have made me whole. God, you have snatched me up out of my sin. You have given me a new purpose and a new life. A life that I would not have known without you. A purpose I would not have found without you. Jesus, do it again. Give me a renewed purpose. Give me a new love for you. Give me just a glimpse of your passion and your glory for my own life. God, I thank you so much for the wonderful Lord that you are. Jesus, you deserve all the praise, all the glory. So God, do it again. Sometimes I just need a reminder that once I was lost, but now I'm saved. I was a sinner, but now I'm whole. Still broken, but whole in you. So God, I thank you so much for the glory, just the presence of you this morning. So God, bless us with your presence. God, may we trust in you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. my confidence. You never failed me yet. See you move, come move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. See you move, come move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. See you move, come move the mountains, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I see you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet.
Let's pray. Father God, thank you that you fulfill your promises, that you are faithful even when we're not. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for what he will continue to do in our hearts. Jesus. That was awesome. As it is Memorial Sunday, I just want to give a moment of silence to remember all who paid the ultimate price for this country and for God. And just thank them and God for that. Father, again, we thank you. We thank you that you helped us build this nation, did it by yourself. We thank you for those who served and give their lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Now I would also like to have everyone who has served and is with us here today to stand, and then I'd like to give them a clap. So, yeah, I know there's at least a couple. Thank you, guys. Thanks again. I don't know if I died. Nope, I'm here. Okay. First of all, we have Connect cards. They should be out on the table here. and first impression surveys. Again, whether you've been here before or this is new to you, please fill them out. We'd like some good, constructive criticism. We can handle it. We'll be fine. And also a few special announcements. The men's event will be here June 8th at 8 a.m. in the morning, going over the project, and that has been a huge thing. God has really showed me, and I'm certain others, what He is doing. Can't reject the truth. He's here for us. Like everybody to be there again June 8th at 8 a.m. here. Another reminder, the serving schedules for June is out in the hall on the clipboard thing. Look for them in your emails. Also, we can know what's going on. June 23rd, after the service on Sunday, we'll have a congregational meeting here. We'll go over the budget. We'll also have ministry stories. Like everybody to remember that we're going to do a potluck Assembly Sunday that day, so bring all sorts of goodies, whatever it is. I'm never the one to put a hindrance on whether it's a main dish or whatnot, because it all turns out good. I'll eat dessert, but I'm cool with that. And the next one won't be for a while in January, so make sure that we're there, involved in what God's doing here. Our financial updates, as you can see board here. May we had internal family giving at almost $4,500, and our expenses $600. And again, there's a little deficit there, but there's, especially Joe, and goes and works hard to get those other outside giving. But we'd like to ultimately be self-sustainable, and that's what God calls us to do. And that kind of looks like 40 family units giving $180. You know, for some of us that's hard. For some of us that's easy. But God could put that on your heart. What should give, wants us to give willingly, with a joyful heart. Some of the things that we're giving is the Acts 29 Verge Southern Baptist up there. See the amounts. Also, we have Lee and Regina Block. They are missionaries in Brazil. They are, from my understanding, being unchurched people in Brazil. They're fighting in the shadows. So we would like for everyone to give what they can, you know, above and beyond to give to them. You have what we're up to date on. Next. Nope. I don't know where we're at, but we were going for 250. And there are pledge cards. Again, how we can give. There's giving boxes on the sidewall, giving boxes in the back. Otherwise, you can give at wellhastings.com/give. And again, with Lee and Regina Block, if you have given pledges to them, we're not gonna go out there and force you to give what you promised. I mean, maybe we'll remind you, but we can't force you to do anything. But just know that they are really counting on that to do what they're doing for God, and it's really nice, especially if you promise to give that. At this time, I'm going to dismiss the kiddos 5 through 12, and they are going with. Oh, she's in the back. So yeah, kids have fun. Now I'd like to introduce Joe. Thank you.
It's good all of your lovely faces this morning.
please grab your Bibles and turn to the book of 1 Timothy. Turn to 1 Timothy chapter 5. That's where we'll be this morning. I'm not certain that you need me to preach this morning after hearing what Abe said to open up our time of worship. And I say that just to acknowledge the good gifts that God has given us in people who are following Jesus. And Abe, brother, thank you for your faithfulness in what you shared. And our leading us so faithfully into the presence of God too. Real simply and quickly, as we sat in the prayer, prayed together, the theme there was casting our burdens before the Lord, trusting that He would sustain us. And one by one around the room, each of us was just confessing basically our kind of shortcoming in that area, our sense of walking in really burdened, weighed down, heavy, tired. And so the way that the Lord was so faithful to us as you guys led in your weakness this morning, I think was very tangible. Thank you guys for your faithfulness and serving us and our church family that way. Chapter 5, in verses 17 through 25 this morning, want to read for you. Invite you to read along with me. And we'll pray, and then I'll preach. Starting in verse 17, Paul says, "Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, 'You shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain, and the laborer deserves his wages. Do not admit a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus and of the elect angels, I charge you to keep these rules without prejudging, doing nothing from partiality. Do not be hasty in the laying on of hands, nor take part in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. No longer drink only water, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and your frequent ailments. The sins of some people are conspicuous going before them to judgment, but the sins of others appear later. So also good works are conspicuous, and even those that are not cannot remain hidden." Go to the Lord with me in prayer. Father, we thank you for your word. And I just confess my own fear and really just my own fear of preaching this passage. And I pray, Father, that you would come and let your Spirit be very present, and that you would give me the ability to do what I really am unable to do, which is to honestly to speak for you. So I ask, Father, that you would come and speak, that you would purify my motives and my heart and the words of my mouth, that you would help me to bring honor to you and be faithful to your word, and to be helpful to your flock, your bride, sheep, the body, church family. So God, I pray that you would do that. And I trust you to do that work. I know that this is easy work for you because you left the tomb empty, so there's nothing that is impossible for you. Help us to hear you. Pray, God, that you would come and strengthen those of us who feel weak. Pray that you would come and heal up those of us who are broken and wounded this morning. Pray that you would come and grant repentance for those of us who are persisting in sin. Trust you with that work. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. This is an interesting text to preach on a Sunday morning. The focus of this passage is really in some instruction from Paul to Timothy on what it means to help the Ephesian church care for her pastors. His instructions here, as I read through them initially, reminded me of a quote from our theological paper, our philosophy of eldership, basically saying this is what we believe about eldership, what we believe it to be.
Reminded me from a quote on that paper that says this. It says, pastoral ministry involves forms of suffering, discouragement, and heartbreak for which no school can prepare a man. Jesus gave the apostles and the elders to tend the flock as under shepherds until he returned. At the end of the day, pastoring is a really tough gig. But at the same time, the church's responsibility and privilege in taking care of her pastors is an equally tough gig. For those of you that have cared for me for years, I know caring for me is a tough gig. Biblically speaking, we know that elders are pastors who oversee the flock of God as shepherds. We know that a shepherd's job is to know, lead, feed, and protect the flock. So a pastor works hard to get to know the members of the flock. A pastor is to labor hard to lead the flock into green pastures. He is to work hard to feed the flock with the Word of God. And he is to labor and work hard as he seeks to protect the flock with the staff and the rod of biblical discipline. So the biblical calling on a pastor's life is to simply shepherd the flock of God well by knowing them, leading them, feeding them, and protecting them. Why? Because there is an account to be given to our Father in heaven who gave his Son on behalf of the body of Christ. So there is an account to be given to God, and there is a crown to be gained in heaven as well. It is a massive job description that no man should ever pursue unless the Lord has called him to and qualified him to do. Why? Because the health of the bride of Christ, as well as the health of that pastor, those pastors and their families, is on the line. It is a serious job for sure. Matt Chandler, who is president of the Acts 29 Church Planting Network, which we are a part of, he is also the lead pastor of the Village Church in Texas. Speaking on the role of an elder or pastor, he said this, and if you have heard Chandler much at all, you know kind of his snarky, sarcastic way of saying things, so pray that you would give him grace even on what he's saying here. As a pastor's job, as a gospel minister, will rarely be in the middle of the healthy, well-groomed sheep where they're chewing good grass, and they just love that you protect them and keep them safe. It says that a pastor's role is actually on the fringes, the edges of the field where the sheep bite. They have rabies. They're too deceived to eat the healthy grass that you put in front of them. They're eating their own excrement, and they're blaming you for it. I remember hearing that phrase and just going, man. I can't say it as well as Chandler did. Says that that is where pastors grind day in, day out. The pastor's job, really, Chandler goes on, is to lay up kindling around the hearts of God's people so that the Spirit of God can do his work of igniting that kindling into flame when the time is right. Another pastor said that being a pastor is like waking up in the morning, getting ready for work by drinking a gallon of rejection, then filling up your thermos with more rejection for the rest of the day, and then coming home after work, drinking another gallon of rejection before going to sleep. And then I would add, then going to sleep while dreaming about rejection all night. That's the job. preacher adds to that is saying that, this is one of my favorite ones, the image is so clear. Said that being a pastor is like getting pistol whipped in your underwear in the parking lot of your church building every day by the people that you love and care for. These pastors who say these things are veterans, trusted. If those things are hard to hear, here's what Charles Spurgeon says. The problem with pastoring is that pastoring is like doing heart surgery every day on other people who have heart disease. And the main tool that God has given you to do your work is your own broken heart. In other words, God uses men with broken hearts to repair and to renew other people with broken hearts. Say all these things by way of introduction because our text obviously deals heavily with pastoral ministry and how to care for your pastor, which is an awkward position for me to be in. I could imagine Paul and Timothy hearing all of these things and in some regard at least nodding their heads in at least knowing approval. Get it, understand it. That's what I would think. And yet, I don't want to miss the fact that I could imagine that some of you may hear all of these things that I've just said. You may hear this passage this morning. You might feel really uncomfortable with it. You might even feel disinterested in this topic. Might be thinking that this is not what you showed up to a church gathering for on a Sunday morning. Maybe you've got some things going on in your life that you would like to address. And the topic of caring for pastors is not anywhere close to the top of your list. But for some reason in God's providence, you showed up here. This just happens to be where we're at in the study. And could not have planned it any differently. So I can imagine that some of the folks in Timothy's church might have felt the same tension too. I can also imagine Timothy, being a fearful young man that he was, probably being very fearful as he read this portion of this letter to the church family in Ephesus. But here's the reality that I know. The reality that I know is that pastors are sheep too. We often forget that. Just as a flock needs to be cared for by her pastor needs to be cared for by the flock. Paul knows this. Lays out some very simple ways that a church family can do this. A simple summary, I think from what Paul is saying here, I think it would basically state that we should care for our pastors by doing three things: honoring them well, disciplining them well, installing them well. That would be my summary of what Paul is saying. What does that mean, though? How do we honor our pastors well? How do we discipline our pastors well? How do we install our pastors well? I want to look at these each one at a time. We'll begin with the first one. Care for your pastors by honoring them well. I put this in the plural, knowing exactly where we're at as a church, knowing that at this point there is still only one pastor here after 7 years almost, and yet we are in a season of maybe installing other elders, pastors. So I did put this in the plural because it would be very hard for me to stand here and say, you can care for your pastor well. So that way you understand that. Care for your pastors by honoring them well. Paul says, verses 17 through 18 says, let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain, and the laborer deserves his wages. In other words, one of the ways that you can care for your pastors well is by honoring them. But the question is, how do you honor them, right? How do we do that? The job of an elder or pastor is to rule well and to labor hard in preaching and teaching. This should be kind of the things that characterize an elder or pastor's job: ruling well, preaching and teaching. And Paul says that these elders are worthy of double honor. I think there are some distinctions here that I'm going to kind of gloss over because we don't have time He says these elders are worthy of double honor. Now, what does double honor mean? Is the question. I think the meaning of double honor carries the hint of two things, hence double honor. Okay? So I think it's financial support and relational respect. I think those are the two prongs of what it means to honor our pastors well. Financial support and relational respect. So let me dig into this a little bit, both of those. We've taken one at a time. Let's look at this concept of financial support. Paul supports that interpretation. If you look right at what he's saying, what he does is he points to scriptures, basically saying God's word says, right? So that's where he founds this. And he does it in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Does it in the Old Testament and then the New Testament by pointing to Jesus' words. So in the Old Testament, there's this passage that talks about how you shall not muzzle an ox. Paul actually uses this twice in his writings to the churches, this time to the Ephesian church through Timothy, another time to the Corinthian church. He's basically saying that an ox will work harder if you let him eat from the grain that he's laboring to tread out. And then he's also pointing to Jesus' words, where he basically says that someone who works hard should not be expected to work for free. Okay? Someone who works hard should not be expected to live on next to nothing. Someone who works hard deserves his wages. The laborer deserves his wages. Now, these principles are true in every vocational field. And it's funny, I don't want to be too snarky, but it's funny when it comes to the church that the attitude is often we're going to humble our pastor by making him work for less, which is really, really unfaithful and sick if you ask me. Right? If we were to treat people like that in any other vocational field, if you were treated that way, you would quit. You would find a different job. No one likes to work for a company that doesn't pay well, right? No one does. So that's first prong, financial support. The second prong of the phrase of double honor has the hint of relational respect to it. So what this doesn't mean is it doesn't mean a kind of cowering down to a holier-than-thou person, like that's Reverend, Pastor, Cardinal, who's so-and-so, right? It should not be that kind of a relational respect where you cannot approach him or you can't talk to them because they're on a pedestal and you are beneath them. That's not the kind of relational respect that Paul would seek to build here when it comes to double honor for our pastors. When I think of the kind of respect that Paul has in mind here, I think of the way that we are all called as members of the body, as Christians, that we are all called to respect people in roles of authority. The Bible doesn't give us a license in any way or permission in any way to disrespect those in authority by undermining their authority with our complaining or our gossiping or our slandering or our disobedience. Complaining, gossiping, slandering, being disobedient to our parents doesn't help our parents, doesn't honor them well. Not godly for us to do as children, nor are the consequences or the outcome for us as children good either. Agreed? The same principle is true when you apply that to government officials, when you apply that to your bosses, when you apply that to pastors, when you apply it to anyone in a position of authority. So it's important that we honor our pastors with our relational respect. I believe that this is just one way that we become the image of Christ to the world around us. I want you to think about this way. When you think about the world around us and the way that it approaches the concept of authority, I think it's kind of ugly. See, if we were to constantly disrespect our pastors in our conversations, then we are really no different than the rest of the world around us. Because the rest of the world around us loves to stand around the water cooler in the break room, talking about how we disagree with those in upper management. I believe that the church family should care for her pastors by honoring them well in two ways: financial support and relational respect. Number two, it seems that Paul is saying that we should care for our pastors by disciplining them well. Care for your pastors by disciplining them well. This is verses 19 through 21. Look at what Paul says. It says, "Do not admit a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus and of the elect angels, I charge you, keep these rules without prejudging, doing nothing from partiality." Here's the reality. Biblical discipline is really hard to do. There's nothing easy about it. There's nothing easy about discipline, period, right? And if we're going to do it in a biblical way, if we're going to do it in a godly way, it is hard. It's scary because it involves certain levels of face-to-face conflict. Face-to-face conflict is hard to do if you think about it in the category of parent to child. You think about it in the category of peer-to-peer. It's hard. Conflict is, but it's even harder to do when you're trying to correct someone that's in authority over you. An old friend of mine that used to influence me and help me a lot, he would always say, influencing up is the hardest thing to do. Interchange influencing with discipline, correction. Correcting up is hard to do. Nevertheless, we know that discipline and correction, it's one of the ways that we are called to love for and care for each other, right? Part of the way that we love each other is by correcting one another and disciplining one another. Simply put, if we spare the rod of correction, Scriptures tells us that we hate our children and we abandon them unlovingly to destruction. The same principle is also true towards one another, whether that's sideways peer-to-peer, whether that's up to someone who's an authority over us. One of the most loving things that you can do to care for your pastors is to discipline them well. But the question remains, what does that look like, right? Paul says, puts it this way, basically says that we should not make a charge. So I'm going to say public charge. We should not make a public accusation against a pastor unless that accusation is founded by 2 or 3 reliable witnesses. So I want to put this back in the form of parent to child for a moment. If you have children, or if you've worked with children at all, if you come to your child and you see that your child is doing what they ought not to be doing, and because you love them, you say, "Hey, Timmy, get your hand out of the cookie jar," and they get angry with you, right? What is their first thing that they oftentimes say? "I hate you. You're so mean," right? Something along those lines. And it's like, smack, shut, no. So one of the first responses from a child being disciplined and corrected is oftentimes to kind of lash back out at you. Now put this in peer-to-peer correction. You see your friend doing something they should not be doing. You go to them, you correct them. Sometimes their first response, you may even been in their shoes, your first gut response is, "Who are you to talk to me that way? You can't judge me," right? Okay? So this is what makes confrontation so hard. I say all this because it's very, very important that if you're going to entertain any kind of accusation against a pastor or a peer, anyone for that matter, you need to do the hard work of ensuring that the evidence is actually reliable and that the motivation behind that is not something ungodly and unhealthy. That's my point in all of that rant. You should not make a charge against an elder unless the evidence of 2 or 3 reliable witnesses substantiates it. This is obviously something that's hard, I think, for us to accept in our culture today. Not that it was any different then in Timothy and Paul's day, but today we're in the age of social media. We're in the age of news media. We're in the age where it is popular to publicly slander one another, and one leader after the next especially, and oftentimes with unfounded accusations. Takes hard work to slow down, takes hard work to actually examine the evidence, as well as the credibility of that person who is submitting the evidence before making a ruling judgment on some accusation. So caution is in order. Same is true when it comes to disciplining pastors, okay? A pastor is first and foremost a broken sinner in need of Jesus. The problem oftentimes is that we elevate our pastors into a place of perfection that is very hurtful. Pastor is also a member of the flock who is in need of discipline and correction. It's not that because you become a pastor, somehow you no longer need discipline or correction because somehow you got it all together. Just that he is the most public face of a church family who all still need to be disciplined and corrected because that's discipleship. Discipline of any member, whether it's a pastor or not, needs to be done with extreme care. Why? With extreme care, not to discourage someone. You don't want to discourage your children by being heavy-handed and overbearing. So there needs to be extreme care. It needs to be done with patience, love, and a heart that cares for the well-being of that person that's being corrected. Now, if you were to look to Matthew 18, if we had time, we would go there now. Matthew 18 is kind of the go-to step-by-step process of practicing correction and discipline within a church family. It's a perfect outline for coming alongside anyone who is a member or pastor, period. And it begins with one-on-one confrontation. And then it moves to two-on-one confrontation. Then it moves to the whole church on one confrontation when the one person being confronted and corrected refuses to listen. The heart behind that kind of confrontation is not some sort of retribution, just simply because I disagree with you on some secondary issue of preference or because I want to get back at you because you've hurt me. The purpose of discipline and correction is to lovingly correct someone and to turn their attention back to a bloody and resurrected Savior. That is the purpose. That is the desire. That is the motivation. So correction, discipline should be done slowly, carefully, to ensure that our motivation is in the right place and that we don't just give this all lip service. Now, as you look at verses 20 through 21 of our text here, I think that you'll notice that Paul makes it clear that if a pastor refuses to listen, if a pastor persists in his sin, if he turns a deaf ear, if he gives you a stiff arm, if he gives you the proverbial middle finger, if that's what he does, the best way that you can actually love and care for your pastors at that point is to rebuke them in the presence of all of the elders as well as all of the church family so that everyone, both member and elder pastor alike, would stand in fear of the consequences of sin. You think about this when you go back to the context of your own family. You have multiple children in your family, and one of them gets out of line, and you need to correct them. No matter how hard you try to kind of pull them off and do some of that privately, the rest of the kids know. Man, Timmy's getting it. Right? Do we have any Timmys here? Because I don't want you to think that I'm just picking on you. I don't think we do. And so the rest of the kids are like, we better straighten up. Get your room clean? No, get it done. Let's go. I don't want mom to get our attention. Right? This is a good, healthy thing in a church family. Helps us to walk in a way that we honor Christ. And he draws our attention to that by saying basically that we do this kind of church discipline with one another, and especially our pastors, we do that knowing that we are actually in the very presence of Christ, who gave his life for us. We are in the presence of our Father who loves us. We are in the presence of the elect angels, the chosen angels who help us. So in doing this, we cannot play favorites. We can't be like, well, I kind of like Joe. He always gets in our face. So, kind of give him some, let him go. Not the other Joe, because the other Joe is really kind of nice and makes lots of jokes. We don't want to play favorites with the other Joe as he comes in either, right? He's kind of kind and makes us feel good. I'm just building caricatures here, which probably aren't even true. I don't know what we would do with Chris as he's coming in, probably just because he's tall and he's 50. I don't know. So he sells cars. There he sells cars. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We don't want to play favorites, right? That's the thing. We don't want to play favorites. We don't want to sweep things under the rug either. Don't want to just ignore things and give somebody a pass. Like, well, he had a rough day. Let's not do that. Let's not make excuses either. We need to carefully practice biblical correction with one another, including our pastors. I will say this, there have been far too many churches with pastors paid millions of dollars, which makes me sick. Millions of dollars. Got private jets, got bodyguards, extravagant lifestyles, 10-stall garages, yachts. These are guys who are supposedly in the pastorate all across our TV screens. Oftentimes teaching things that ought not to be taught, doing things that ought not to be done, because their churches are too cowardly. Because they themselves are too cowardly and have not instituted a culture of healthy biblical discipline. These churches and these pastors, so-called, are way too enamored with fame and popularity. Too afraid to confront each other for fear of losing their power and fame and influence. I would say that these phony churches, their phony pastors, they will face judgment someday for not practicing biblical discipline with one another. Okay? And many of them right now, plastered all across the news as I preach. One case in point, James MacDonald. No problems naming him. After the things that I've looked into, I feel confident the man has disqualified himself completely. But here's the thing. Say all that and we resonate with it. You don't have to be a wealthy church with a well-dressed famous pastor to be guilty of sweeping things under the rug. Okay? Poor, small, little churches struggling to stay alive just like ours. Also can be guilty of this. We can be guilty of small little reigns of gossip, small little reigns of slander where no one has the courage to step up and say, hey, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about our leaders that way. Let's not talk about our church family that way because we're cowardly. But we ought to be careful that that doesn't become us too. It happens here as well as anywhere else. And then in the midst of that, you have pastors who isolate themselves away from true community where it's needed, give themselves over to just busy work, administrative stuff. Feel like I got my check mark, got done, take off. So let us all be warned as we look at this and corrected as needed. One of the best ways that you can care for your pastors is by disciplining them. Okay. Number 3, as we move into the final portion of the text, number 3, care for your pastors by installing them well. Verses 23, 25. Paul says this, says, do not be hasty in the laying on of the hands. I always like to say a word of fists. I hope you all understand the joke there. And if you need to discipline me later, you can. Nor take part in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. No longer drink only water, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and frequent ailments. The sins of some people are conspicuous, going before them to judgment, but the sins of others appear later. So also good works are conspicuous, and even those that are not cannot remain hidden. So this passage, this portion of the text, Paul's basically explaining that the installation of pastors and the ongoing care of pastors is important. And in churches, it is oftentimes overlooked to the detriment of the church family, to the detriment of those pastors, to the detriment of their families. All too often, I would say that the church slaps some of their best businessmen or most respected men into roles of eldership that they are neither called or qualified for. So, final instruction here is to simply install elders slowly and pay attention to their ongoing health. We should not install pastors quickly or flippantly, for that matter, either. It's a very serious role. But we should take great care to develop and install those pastors slowly. And while doing so, we should be examining every aspect of their lives carefully. Why? Because it's a public office, and it's one of eternal value. This is why the process for becoming an elder or a pastor here at the Well is so robust. There are some men who probably may never jump into the process because of the beastiness of the process, and that's okay. There are other places who don't take it as seriously as we do, and I don't say that in a prideful or arrogant way. They might place emphasis or seriousness on different aspects, might be a gracious way of saying it. Our process here is robust. We expect our elders, our pastors, to be healthy in their spiritual lives, so we examine deeply. We expect our pastors to be healthy in their relationships, so we examine that deeply. We expect our pastors to be healthy in their marriage and their family lives, and in their ministries, and in their theological understanding. These are all categories that we examine very closely. And the reason for that is not just simply to say, okay, you passed the test, you're super knowledgeable in all these areas, now you're in. It's not that. It's not a retributive type of you're out or you're in kind of process, although there is the element that there needs to be a qualification for sure. The other, and I would say just as vitally important, is the continued ongoing care of an elder. So we do not just slap people into ministry and then use them for all their good. We want to take care of our elders. Part of the reason for our feasty process. So our elders, candidates, our pastoral candidates, submit themselves to extensive writing projects. It's about a third of what I wrote to be in the role that I'm in. Third. So there's extensive writing projects. There's face-to-face interviews over the course of 1 to 2 years before they could be installed here. This is all done. Again, do the best that we can as broken hearts to ensure that the men that we install as elders are actually qualified and called to become elders. I heard Bob Thune say the other day in a meeting that the reason that the process is so robust is that we have learned some things by watching and experiencing the things that have happened in the church as it pertains to elders. So we have tried to arrive at a place where we can say we are doing everything we possibly can do to look at one of the number one reasons churches fail, which is failed pastors. And we are trying to do everything we can do to say we have made a process that is as godly and as robust as we possibly can. I would never trust my home to the hands of a Navy SEAL who wasn't a real Navy SEAL. Nor would I train or trust the bride of Christ to a man who has not passed a test equally as tough. So we take the installation and ongoing care process very seriously. So our guys submit themselves to some really difficult stuff, ensured to make sure that they are qualified and called. It's also done to provide the best ongoing care. Take a minute to think about that as we wrap this up, trying to get there. We want to provide the best ongoing care for our pastors and their families. We do not want to install elders without identifying some of their weaknesses and shortcomings first. That might sound weird, but I'll tell you this, I would be very slow to install any elder if he just looked all clean and pretty. If there were no blind spots, if there were no areas of some concern. There should be an area of concern, each of us. Why? Because we are not perfect. And if any man walked into the room and wanted to try to come across that way and then was unwilling at the same time to receive help and ongoing care for that area of his life, I would not want to serve with him. And I think that that's a protective thing for the body, because what you wind up with men like that is heavy-handed men who think that they are perfect and the sheep are not. So that ongoing care aspect of this, the assessment process, is designed to encourage someone in their gifts. Man, God has wired you so well. Your family is ready for this. Yet there is also these weaknesses that you have and these blind spots. I want to come alongside of you and watch your back and help you. Discipleship process. Short, we want to be serious about what Paul says in kind of the last couple of verses here. Verses 24 through 25, right? Even 22. We're not interested in taking part in the sins of our elders. In other words, we're not interested in turning a blind eye to something and just being like, oh, Joe's got a tendency to overwork himself, but thankfully he kind of overworks himself because people get cared for. We don't want to turn a blind eye to those things. We want to be able to say, Joe, you have an issue here. So when I went through the 2 different assessment processes to become an elder here at this church, that was one of the things that came up. I have a tendency to work in the red. I don't think there's many of you in this room that don't already know that, that haven't come to me often and said, slow down. Take an extra day off this week. Knock it off. Because we know if I'm not healthy, if we're not healthy, then the image of God that we project to the world around us is not good, not healthy. So that's just one of the key areas. One of the other key areas, if you know me well, is an intense battle with worry, doubt, and fear. I feel like there's seasons of that where it kind of gets less, but then there's seasons of that where I am crippled almost by it. So those of you in this church who have challenged me and encouraged me in those seasons, you have disciplined me well. But that's what that process is for, is to identify those things to ensure that I don't wind up disqualifying myself from the race as an elder. We do not want to take part in the sins of our elders. We want to develop our elders, our pastoral team. We want to develop one that remains spiritually, emotionally, and physically pure, which includes paying attention to an elder candidate's spiritual, relational, physical, emotional, theological health, marital health. Paul draws our attention to that by instructing Timothy to not only drink water, but also drink a little wine, which for some folks might have you a little bit afraid. In that day, there was some medicinal value for wine for Timothy's stomach. Furthermore, I'll take a brief couple of seconds. There was an issue in the Ephesian church, which the other Joe, old Joe, did a really good job of pointing to when he preached 1 Timothy 4, 1 through 5. Basically, in that sermon, talking about how there were people in the church who were into asceticism. So they're into looks, basically. And those leaders, Paul is saying, watch out for those guys. They're into doing things on the external for show. And they're guys whose consciences were seared. They forbid marriage. They require abstinence from foods that God created to be received. And so I think part of this is that Timothy might have been slipping into hey, I want to stay pure here as I'm confronting these guys, so I better not take any drink, because if I were to take a drink while confronting them for their asceticism, they might try to turn that back around and be like, oh, Timothy, you're drinking a little wine, so I'm just going to drink water. And Paul's saying, don't go there. Like, don't become guilty of giving into the same thing they're given into. There's much better reasons, obviously much better reasons to restrict yourself from drinking alcohol. That's not one of them. So what Paul is saying is, hey, water's good. Don't just drink that. Also drink a little bit of wine. Pay attention to your physical health would be another way that I would probably principalize the truth in that. So in the end, we pay attention to the lives of our elders and our pastors because conspicuous sins, at the end of this passage, conspicuous sins, things that you see immediately, right? Or conspicuous good works, those things, they tell the tale of those men's character. And even the things that you cannot see right now will only stay hidden for a short period of time. So I think that if we examine elders well as they come in, we will be able to see, hopefully, by God's grace and his power. So in summary, what we want to do is install elders and pastors well by taking it slow, paying attention to their ongoing care. I'm at 43 minutes. I apologize. I've got about probably 5 minutes left, okay? So if you can hang in there with me. I think this last part I think is important enough not just to scratch, based on the heavy content. I pray that the Lord would confirm that with you. Summary, quickly, summary and some application is what I want to do. Believe that the Lord would have us care for our pastors well by honoring them, disciplining them, and installing them carefully or well, right? That's been kind of where we've been this morning. And the only real way that I know how to bring this message to a close is to probably make some personal comments on my experience here as a pastor over the last 7 years. My prayer then is that the Lord would encourage all of us and challenge us at the same time. So number one, on honoring our pastors, just a quick personal word there. You might remember as we talked about it, honoring our pastors begins and ends with financial support and relational respect, remember? So I've labored here for about 7 years, most of those years alone, worked hard to seek out, to invite in, to recruit, to train, to install other elders and pastors to carry that load of shepherding. And we're in that season where we're close. In fact, I'll let everybody know now, this will come up again here in a minute. Joe and Eileen Nelson will be going through an elder assessment interview on June 12th. So our external advisory board guys will come in and we'll do an assessment interview, and hopefully that will produce an ongoing care plan and a way of installing Joe as the second elder here. So we're close. Now, I've done this for 7 years, to be honest, because if I'm not honest, I'm lying. So I've done this work for the last 7 years for compensation that has been typically below the poverty line. I don't say that to shame or guilt you or any of you. I say that to let you know that Christy and I made that choice knowingly. We calculated the cost. We knew that we would be making below the poverty line for a long time in our effort to plant a church. You don't start a church in your living room with 4 other people and get paid a decent wage to begin with, unless you're a massively good fundraiser. And the problem with that is the more time I spend fundraising, the less time I get to spend evangelizing and pastoring. So it's a real tension to say no to somebody who needs a phone call because I need to go raise funds from a church in Kansas. So that's been the tension for 7 years. We've made that sacrifice simply because we want to see a church planted that reaches the lost and makes disciples here in Hastings. Now, I didn't take a compensation increase for the first 5 to 6 years, but 2 years ago, a handful of our leaders kind of saw what was happening, and then those guys and ladies came and challenged me, challenged our church family to begin a retirement fund for us, and that was good. That was a blessing. Then this year, back in January, more of our leaders came and just kind of courageously helped increase my salary and housing allowance so that we could then make ends meet. Now, I say all of that to say that's been the process. In my understanding and all of our understanding, and you can ask, Joe is our treasurer, and Chris kind of functionally serves as our vice president of the organization. But in my understanding, that's still compensation of where I'm at is still below the bottom end of the range. So if there's a range for my job, it is X amount of dollars to X amount of dollars, and somebody with certain experience should be below the bottom and the high end. My understanding is I'm still right here, closer to the bottom end. In fact, it might be right there, and that way you guys know. I don't say that again to shame or any of those things. I feel extremely blessed. We make ends meet pretty well. Now, as far as the relational respect aspect, I'm trying for 5 minutes, guys. As far as the relational respect aspect, I have typically felt pretty respected, okay, by you guys relationally, especially during Pastor Appreciation Month. There was 1 year there, I remember, a long time ago that was kind of tough, but you guys have done really well. I'm thankful for you guys during those months, the gifts that you give us, the way that you show your kindness towards us, and even in between, outside of that month of Pastor Appreciation. Some of you will pass along a card or a small financial gift or some other blessing towards us, and those are huge. So I'm thankful. I just want to encourage you guys in the way that you do that. Typically, I do not feel disrespected relationally. There is one way that I do feel disrespected relationally. that I think is important for me to draw attention to, and it's usually when someone refuses to listen to my direction. So when you come and you sit down across the desk from me and you say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking about doing that, my first question is okay, are you telling me that because you're trying to make an announcement, this is what you're going to do? Or are you coming to me because you actually want some help with this? Otherwise, it's like, why are you here? Because part of my job description is not to be behind a desk to hear your announcement of what you're going to do with your life. Does that make sense? Like we have friends for that. You don't need a pastor for that. So if you're sitting across the desk from me, you're like, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, Z, then the reason you're there is to get my counsel. And when I give you counsel and you refuse to listen to it, you go out the next day, you do exactly the opposite of what you came in to ask for. That's hard. And so that goes back to the drinking a gallon of rejection. You just put yourself in my shoes for a minute and have 5 or 10 appointments in a day, and then the next day find out that those 5 or 10 appointments went and did exactly what you told them not to do. Like, why am I doing my job, right? So that's probably the only area that I could pick on us for, that I would say we could keep an eye on. Otherwise, thankful for you guys. I'm going to move on. There's more there that I wrote. You can go read the notes online. Point number 2, point number 3, quickly, discipline our pastors. A few weeks ago, during a sermon, I made a very heavy comment that I sensed that we were taking our privileges to worship that morning for granted, that we were approaching God with a flippant attitude. After that sermon, good brother of mine here in the church family came to me, and I think he just practiced good biblical discipline. He asked me, like, are you okay? Did you have a tough morning? Something happened this week that bothered you, that motivated you to say what you said? I'm really grateful for that guy, having the courage to come to me. That courage that he exhibited provided me then the opportunity to first and foremost self-reflect. It also prompted me to make a few phone calls to other leaders in our church family and say, hey, man, this is kind of how that comment struck me, and I'm wondering how it struck you, and I want to make sure this was timely, it was accurate. And what I found out was that I definitely had a long week, so that word was definitely for me, but it also confirmed that it was also for others, that I wasn't the only one in the room who felt disconnected and felt like the atmosphere was a flippant atmosphere and that we were taking our worship of the Lord for granted. Had that gentleman never come to me and somebody said, discipleship would not have happened, and it began with me. And so I am thankful for that. Please, ask the Lord for courage to not sit around and do that in a gossipy, slanderous way, but to do that in a face-to-face way. Come to me. If you have questions, you have concerns. Come to our elders, our pastors, as they begin to be installed. And then lastly, on the installation process, I already mentioned that Joe and Eileen will be heading into that process. You know that Chris is working his way through it as well. Please encourage them. Please get with them. Don't just stand back and go, well, that's Joe's job to install those guys. Get to know them. Take them out to lunch. Get together with them. Text them. Call them. Find out what they need prayer-wise. Find out ways that you can bless them practically. These men and their wives and their families, I believe, are huge gifts to us. And our job is to watch each other's backs as we move forward. It's a responsibility. It's a privilege. Amen? In conclusion, and I'm done, we never need to forget that Jesus is the chief shepherd, right? Okay? Christ is the chief shepherd, and he shepherds us well. He knows us well. He leads us well. He feeds us well, and he protects us well. He knows our every thought, our every desire. He leads us into green pastures. He feeds us his word by the power of his Spirit, who preaches truth to us, and he protects us from the attacks of Satan, sin in the world. He literally gave his life sacrificially on the cross of Calvary so that you and I could be free from our sin. Ultimately, a church that honors and disciplines and installs pastors and elders well actually proves that they love Jesus well. So, think about that. And as we close, just hoping that you would give thanks to the Lord for the chief shepherd, Jesus, who gave himself as a sacrifice for us and continues to shepherd us through the presence of his very own Spirit. Let's pray. Father, we thank thank you for this word, and we ask that you would be powerfully present among us, continue to be so as we close. We trust you, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. We close with worship and communion each week. 2 stations on right and left, one in the center and one in the back. The stations on the right and left and the one in the back will have people at those stations to serve you in the elements and to pray with you if you have needs. The one in the center is for you to come alone and serve yourself. Spend time with the Lord on your own, should you desire to. If you're with us and you're not yet a believer, don't take this meal because you've been doing something that's fake. It has no meaning for you yet. But if you're here and something you heard today turned you in that place where you're like, you know what, I am broken, I am a sinner, and I need the chief shepherd to come to shepherd my soul. I trust in his work at the cross, bloody, dead, resurrected, so that I might have hope of heaven. If you're in that place and you're ready, one of us at those 3 stations wants to pray with you about that, serve you communion for the first time. Likewise, finally, if you just sense that you just need prayer, not in a place where you should take communion, something happened in your life right now where you're not ready to, or not ready to follow Jesus, but you do need prayer, I'd just like to pray with you. Let us know that when you come up. Okay? I invite you guys to stand and we'll close.
Alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope, no place to begin. Love made a way to let mercy come in. Death was arrested, my life began. Ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. The morning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. Death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. Shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. A Savior displayed on a criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost.
But then Jesus arose with the freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, we're free, free, forever we're free. Come join the song of all the redeemed. Yes, we're free, free, forever, amen. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. When death was arrested and my life began. What love could remember no wrongs we have done. Omniscient, all-knowing, He counts not their sum. Thrown into a sea without bottom or shore. Our sins, they are many, His mercy is more. Praise the Lord. His mercy is more. Stronger than darkness, new every morn. Sins, they are many, His mercy is more. Patience would wait as we constantly roam. What Father so tender is calling us home? He welcomes the weakest, the vilest, the poor. Our sins, they are many, His mercy is more. His mercy is more. Stronger than darkness, new every morn. Sins, they are many, His mercy is more. What riches of kindness He lavished on us. His blood was the payment, His life was the cost. We stood neath the debt we could never afford. Our sins, they are many, His mercy is more. Praise the Lord. His mercy is more. Stronger than darkness, new every morn. Sins, they are many, His mercy is more. Praise the Lord. His mercy is more. Stronger than darkness, new every morn. Sins, they are many, His mercy is more.
again, everybody, for coming. I'd love to see you here next week for service. Go enjoy Memorial Weekend. What's left of it.
Yeah.